Systems can teach you programming languages. Courses can teach you frameworks. YouTube tutorials can even teach you how to clone Twitter. But almost nobody teaches you how to design systems. Not in the way that you actually need to learn it. And that is why things work perfectly in development, but then breaks the moment real users show up. Not because the code is wrong, because the system wasn't designed for what actually happens in production. Hello, my name is Glory Praise Emmanuel. I am a software engineer and this is System Design Unpacked. This is a series where we are going to be talking about system design in details, real examples, real concepts, explain the way that they should have been the first time. Now, this series is something I wish someone handed me way earlier in my career. Let's get right into the video. So you probably have used a food delivery app before. Maybe Uber Eats, Chowdeck, Bolt Foods, or whatever. You go there, you find the restaurant, one button, one tap, 1 second. And you've probably done this 100 times without thinking about it, right? But there is an entire system firing underneath that app. And once you actually see it, the way you think about software changes. So let's slow it down, okay? Now, for each piece, I want you to ask one question. What would happen if this piece wasn't here? So first, the order leaves your phone. Now, when you tap that button to place your order, your phone sends a message to a computer somewhere in the world. Now, that computer is called a server. The server is what actually processes your order. Uber Eats, for example, does not have just one server. They have hundreds of servers. Why? Because millions of people use the app. And if everybody's request went to the same single server, that server will probably melt. So before your request even reaches a server, it passes through something called a load balancer. Now, think of a load balancer like a traffic warden at a busy junction. It looks at all the incoming requests and sends each one to a different server so that no single server gets overwhelmed. Now, in production, this is usually Nginx or AWS ELB or Cloudflare sitting in front of everything. Without it, the very first time that particular food app trended on, say, Twitter or TikTok, and thousands of people ran to the app to actually use it at the same time, the app will probably just die in real time. Now, your request lands on one of those servers and the server has work to do. First of all, it has to confirm that you're logged in. It has to check that the restaurant is still open. It has to make sure that the food that you ordered is still available. And then, of course, payment is important. It has to check that your payment method is valid. To do all of this, it needs to look things up. And the place where all of the app's information is stored is called a database. But here's the thing. Querying a database is expensive. If every single user who opened the app had to ask the same questions over and over again, the database will buckle under the load. So the app uses a trick. Now, the things that do not change often, things like the menus, the opening hours, the restaurant location, they get copied into a fast little memory store called a cache. Now, in production, this is usually things like Redis or Memcache. Now, the server checks the cache first. If the answer is there, great, it comes back instantly. But if it is not there, it then goes to the database. Now, every fast app you've probably used quietly uses this in the background. Caches are invisible until they are not there. Anyways, we'll come back to that. Okay, you've tapped the button, the server checks everything, your order is valid. What then happens? Several things need to happen. Your card needs to be charged. The restaurant needs to be notified so that they can start cooking. A driver needs to be found. Your order needs to be saved somewhere in what we call history. Now, you could do this one after the other. You charge the card, you wait, you notify the restaurant, you wait, you find a driver, you wait, but that is actually slow. And worse is that if one step fails, the whole order fails. Let's say the restaurant notification is down for 10 seconds. That means the order won't go through. Your driver won't be found. Nothing would work just because one part of the system had a bad moment. So instead, the app uses something called a message queue. Could be Kafka, RabbitMQ, SQS. So just imagine a small whiteboard where tasks are dropped off. and different workers come and pick up tasks from it independently. One worker handles payment, another handles the restaurant notification, another finds the driver. They all work at the same time. If the restaurant notification worker is down for a few seconds, no problem. The task sits on the whiteboard until it comes back and gets picked up by maybe another worker or by that same worker. Meanwhile, your payment has gone through, your delivery is confirmed, your driver is already on the way. That is why when you tap place order, you see order confirmed, even though behind the scenes, half a dozen things are still being worked on. And then finally, the driver on your map. After your order is confirmed, you watch a little icon on a map showing your driver moving towards the restaurant and then moving towards you. That is actually the driver's phone constantly sending its location to the server and the server pushing that location to your phone every few seconds. Now, this usually happens through something called WebSockets, push updates. Now, this is a connection designed for things that needs to be updated live. Now, remember when I said that caches are invincible until they are not? I'll tell you a story. I worked on a payment system that worked perfectly, clean code, tested, everything green, until real users showed up and the payment service started timing out under loop. Now, here's where it got ugly. The payments were actually going through. The money was being charged. The database was recording the transaction correctly. But the cache holding the user facing state, the thing that decides what your screen shows you, would clear at the wrong minute. So the user would see payment failed for a payment that had just succeeded. Now that is a system design problem, not a code problem. The code was doing exactly what it was written to do. What was missing was a coherent design for how state flows between the database, the cache, and the user screen when the system is under pressure. And until we redesign that flow, no amount of fixing individual functions was going to solve it. The worst kind of bug is not the one that crashes the app. It is the one where the system is doing everything right, but the user still thinks it's broken. That entire flow, the traffic warden distributing requests, the memory store handling frequent questions, the whiteboard with the workers picking up tasks, the live location update, that is the system. Nobody wrote a single line of code for this application before figuring all of these things out first. And every single piece exists because somebody asked one question: what breaks if this isn't here? So that is system design. If you want a definition, system design is simply the process of deciding how the different parts of a software system fits together, from the architecture to the data flow to the trade-offs, so that the system holds up when real users start pushing it. Writing code is making one thing work. System design is making many things work together reliably under pressure. And here is why this matters more in 2026 than it did even a few years ago. For a long time, system design was a senior engineer's problem. Juniors wrote features. Seniors thought about how everything fit together. If you were early in your career, you didn't need to worry about it. But that world is collapsing. AI can now write features. It can implement algorithms. It can generate working code in seconds. The thing that used to separate a junior from a senior, which is clean working code, is increasingly becoming something that AI can do too. So what actually separates engineers now, apart from experience? It is the thinking, understanding how the process fits together, why the system is built the way it is, and what breaks the moment you push it. That is the part that AI cannot do for you, because it requires understanding the full context of what you are building. And mid-level and senior interviews already test for this. There is an entire system design round specially to check if you can design softwares that holds under real use. So you see, this is actually important. So you might be wondering, how do you start thinking this way? 3 principles, and that is all of it at the core. The first principle is start with the problem, not the tools. The biggest mistake I see engineers make is jumping straight to technology. Let's use Kafka. Let's use Solidity. Let's use React. Sounds cool and it's actually very fine. But why? Does the problem actually require it? Look at the Uber Eats example. The cache is not there because Redis is cool. It is there because the database couldn't survive every user asking the same question over and over again. So you can see that the problem came first, the tool came second. Pick the tools first and you would spend the rest of the year bending the problem to fit the tool. Principle 2. every decision is a trade-off. There is no perfect architecture. There is no setup where you will get speed, reliability, consistency, and simplicity all at once. Use the message queue as an example. Your order shows confirmed before the restaurant has actually been notified. That is a trade-off. You are choosing speed for the user over consistency in the system. And most of the time, that is the right call. But sometimes, it isn't. That's what separates experienced engineers, not knowing the right answer, but understanding the trade-off between the decisions that they make. Principle 3. Design for failure, not for success. Now, this is the one I want you to tattoo on your brain. Your system will fail, not might. Will. The database will go down, network will have a bad day, a deploy will go wrong at 4:47 p.m. on a Friday. A third-party tool that you depend on would have an outrage at the exact moment you are about demoing to your biggest customer. This is not hypothetical. This is a calendar event waiting to happen. Bad design pretends that failure won't happen. Good design assumes that it will and builds for it. Now, every piece of the food app, the load balancer, the message queue, everything exists because somebody thought, what will happen when things go wrong? The question you should keep asking yourself on every piece of the system is, when this fails, what happens next? If the answer is everything breaks or the whole system stops working, then you have more work to do. And once you internalize these 3 principles, you stop competing with AI. You start conducting with it. AI can generate code all day, but code is only half of the equation. The system around the code decides whether it survives contact with real users, and that is the part that you bring. Now, if you want to go deeper on this, Educative has a system design course that I recommend. You find interactive exercises where you design systems step by step all the way through interview level problems. The link is in the description. If you're serious about getting good at this, I think it's worth a look. You might be thinking, okay, this sounds like a backend thing. I'm a front-end developer, I'm a mobile engineer, I'm a designer. Does this matter for me? Yes. It does. And I'll tell you why. System design, in my own opinion, is a way of thinking. A front-end engineer designing how a complex app manages state across dozens of screens is doing system design. A mobile developer deciding what happens when a user loses network is doing system design. Someone building agentic AI where multiple agents pass tasks between each other is absolutely doing system design. Anytime you're building something where the pieces have to work together, system design thinking applies there. Your job as an engineer is not just to write code. Your job is to be the reason why something works, not the reason it exists, the reason it survives. That's the job that only humans who understand systems can do. Now, in the next video, we are going to go through core system design concepts, scalability to caching, databases, message queues, fault tolerance, all of those things with real analogies and real trade-offs. Also, I run a newsletter community, Worship HQ, where we share real opportunities every week, like jobs, grants, learning opportunities, earning opportunities, both in the tech, AI, and Web3 space. The link is in the description box. Subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss the next video. Drop a comment if there is a system design concept you want us to cover. And yeah, please like this video and share with everybody that you know. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.